Good morning, everyone. It's day 9, and I wanted to do this video this morning to answer a couple of questions that have come through since last night. So one feedback, actually a few feedbacks that have come through from people is, the comment of, oh, I'm doubting the detox, or I'm doubting the master fast. It's too radical. And I want you to know that we all go through that. I went through that moment, not just once, but many times. And I still have moments where, I go into thinking, does one really need to live this way? Is this what's necessary for healing? Look at all the other people. And it's so easy to then go and compare, and it's easy to start doubting and to start thinking that the system is so radical. And again, that's all in the mind, because on the other hand, what is radical? My understanding of radical is it's radical to think that our bodies, we have no idea. I mean, I'm beginning to now, after all this time, or not just beginning, but it took me a long time to really understand just how toxic my body was. And yet I didn't smoke, I didn't drink. I already thought I was doing all the right things, and yet my body was still toxic. And that actually gave me such a deep understanding of just how toxic this world is. And we can say, oh, that's a radical view, you're too radical. Or we can, I don't feel it's radical at all. It's simply what it is. I'm not even angry or upset about it. It's what it is. And we have all contributed to this. And I don't think even that there's a conspiracy around it, that there's the conspiracy is there, but it's unconscious. They're not people sitting somewhere on top going, how can we make the masses sick? There's just a whole bunch of people, independent, that simply want to make money, and it's a whole mindset. And what we are doing is we are looking at that mindset. We, when I say we, is me, you, as well as all the other people that, like me, are vested in this, or that have found this healing system. And we are going and saying, hang on, it's the system that is wrong. We have veered too far from what is natural for humankind. And just because you can totally live on a toxic diet, if I were to now go back to my old ways, which probably I would never go back to the same, way that I was doing things before, because I've changed. But even if I were to kind of go back to my old ways, and even if I were to go back to eating some food that are just not optimal, even if I were to go back to putting on makeup on my face and, products, I could probably, because I've cleansed so much, after the initial shock to the system, my body would probably be okay with it, to some point. But ultimately, I would also numb myself back down. And the point is, it doesn't happen from one day to the next. It happens gradually over time, so that it almost goes unnoticed. And before I would know it, I would be numbed down to the point where I was before. Only trouble is that you can't really unknow what you have learned, So I couldn't go back pretending that I don't know. But I could regress. And I could be numbed down again. And especially if I add enough fats to my diet where the toxicity is nicely encapsulated by the fats, I could get away with it. And I could happily live like that for, I'm sure even well until my 80s, maybe until my 90s, because my genetics are actually very good. I've got, grandparents on both sides that became, were well into their 90s. And so it's all possible. But is that the quality of life that you want? And there's no right or wrong. It's just, what do you want for yourself? And that to me is the only question that matters when you go through this detoxification process. As you hit against your mental blocks that tell you this is too much, this is too radical, it requires too much attention, it requires too much self-care. There's all these things that I need to do, which, by the way, eventually they become second nature. At the beginning I was also overwhelmed by the need to, body brush twice a day and do the trampoline and do the sunshine and do the cold water. And now it's kind of like it's so integrated in my life that it actually, there's no more thinking about it, And some days I don't do certain things, but overall, 80% of the time, this is how I live my life. This is what I do. On the other hand, though, when you are, like some of you, when you are faced with chronic disease, when you are faced with acute disease, like some of you are, then you don't really have that many choices. Or rather, you can go the medical route, you can stop what you're doing here, and you can hand yourself over to the medical system. But what is there, what's there. You're going to be pumped full of cortisone or, antibiotics, medication. You're going to be shut down further. And yes, maybe you're going to be fixed, patched up temporarily. But knowing what you know, and knowing from the little that you have learned so far on this journey, you know where that's going to take you. This is the unknown. This is, in many ways, it's a new path. It's the path of pioneers. On the other hand, we can also say it's not that new, because all the teachings that I'm bringing out, actually, and many others like me, have been in existence since forever. So we are just taking this old knowledge and applying it in a modern way, because we now have a holistic understanding of where everything comes together, the physical with the emotional, the spiritual. Why do emotions come up when we detox? It's because those emotions, those toxic emotions, are brewing in our body, or have been brewing in our body and sucking our energy. So everything is always connected. So to those of you that are doubting the system, and that think that this is radical, I would like you to think, and I mean, obviously you're free, to go the medical route by all means. I'm not here to convince anybody, but I do want you to think about, what are you calling radical? Because to me, it's radical to think that literally 95% of the food that is in the shops is toxic and is not needed by the body. I still like the taste of it, I won't lie. Of course I like all that stuff. But when I consider what it does to my body and to my spirit and to my emotional and mental being, it's like, wow, no, I don't want to put that stuff into my body. And the same goes with medication. Yes, I know medication can be a quick fix, but more often than not, it's so temporary that it's just not worth it. So those are all things to consider. Never mind then people, who have cancer, who have severe, debilitating dis-ease in the body. Even there, doctors are not going to be able to help you immediately. it's going to be a back and forth, and and more often than not, you're still not going to be helped. You simply then live under the illusion that you are being helped because you are in the doctor's hands, who supposedly has the answers. Medicine is going to be obsolete, or medicine for dis-ease the way we know it. Medicine has its place when you have a broken arm, when there's an acute emergency, of course, and for many other things. But ultimately, for chronic diseases, for cancers, and yes, it's still going to take probably 30, 40, 50 years, but medicine as we know it will become obsolete because we are waking up to the fact that we have at all times, I don't care how debilitated you are, at all times you have full control, full choice over your body, over your healing. And if there's people that have gotten up out of wheelchairs after years of being in one, if there's people that have started to take 4 steps by themselves after 12 years of not walking, then anything is possible through the process of detoxification. And when we understand that, then we don't need to fear the weight loss. You are going to lose weight. Some of you are saying, oh, I'm losing 1 kilo a day. That's how toxic you are. I'm not losing 1 kilo a day. I did initially. Now I don't. And neither is my husband and many other people. And what does that tell us? Why do some of us lose weight very quickly and then some of us don't lose that weight quickly? It's degrees of toxicity. Typically, people who have been on a meat diet and have, lived the healthy paleo way, they're going to be losing weight super quick. I had a client last year, she lost, and she was fit. She looked, when you looked at her, you would have said, wow, I want to look like that. Super fit woman, gymming, ripped. She went on the detox. In 12 days, she lost 10 kilos. And she was freaked out. And her husband was freaked out because she lost the booty. But that's toxic. So everything that it looked so good because it was packaged around muscles, but it was toxic. So that's also where, so often we look from our perspective, we look at people and we go, wow, look how, hi Tina, hi Eureka. We look at other people and go, oh wow, they look healthy, But it means nothing. You are not in their bodies. And until people start detoxing, you don't know what's in their bodies. I've seen women older than me, looking better than me, with a greater body, where I would have again said, picture perfect health. They start detoxing because they think, oh, well, I'm just going to do a little detox. 7 days into the detox, worms everywhere. Nests of worms coming out. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. Great lesson, And actually, funny enough, often, not always, but often the skinnier people that on the outside look better, I have seen so far actually have had the most worms. So, don't go by what the outside looks like, and honor that every process, every person is in a different process. So honor your process, gauge your results by what is happening in your body, Don't look at what's happening to other bodies. And I know it's a challenging process, If this were easy, everybody would be doing it, and there would be no disease on the planet. But the point is, this brings up everything. I always say, this is the process that leaves no stone unturned. And that's the bottom line. And if you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to enter this mystery, and if you're willing to trust your divine nature, and if you're willing to take other people's word for it, and realize, well, if they've gone through it and they've survived it, I can too. because there is never any difference between any of us. You know, it's just, can you trust the system or not? So that's my little rant to those of you that are doubting the system and that are, you know, going, oh, it's so radical. Is this really necessary? You decide, you know, you feel into your truth. And at the same time, if this is not your truth, then by all means, do what is your truth. Because if you do something that you're not feeling, no matter how wonderful it may be, it's never going to serve you. And that is also the path of healing, is learning to say yes and no to what is true in our heart. And to go, okay, this is simply my truth. I wish it were different, but I have to honor where I'm at, you know. And sometimes we need to take 10 steps back to then move forward again from a completely new place. So that's part of it. The other point, I got another message. So, you know, whenever you send me messages, I like doing videos about it, because that way we help many. And I don't have to reply to each one of you, which kind of is becoming increasingly harder. But at least it gives me material for these videos. So please continue messaging me and continue asking questions and, you know, sharing what's happening, because then I can share it in these videos. And normally there's going to be people that, you know, can relate to this information. So a woman messaged me and said she started this process, and, you know, I don't think she's done a lot of deep inner work so far. And she started to meditate, and in her meditations, she remembered being abused as a child. And that this memory sort of just arose, and it became clear that she had suppressed this memory and what to do. So first of all, I want to honor you for being brave enough to go there, and for the willingness to bring it forth, because it does take a lot of bravery. And to remember that this work that you are doing on yourself, you are doing for your whole generation. You are doing this work for your children as well, because as you heal your stuff, you give permission, even just on an energetic level, even if you, and you will talk to your children about it eventually, but until then, you are still on an energetic level. You are healing them, you are healing your lineage, and on a greater level, you are healing the world, because whenever we do our work, you know, our work always radiates out because it's energy. And as we shift our energetic matrix, even without doing anything, it sends ripples out into the universe, into eternity for that matter. And so, so what do you do with this arising? Because obviously that's hectic, you know, that's radical to remember that you were abused. And the first thing to do is to really have huge compassion for yourself, and to honor yourself, and to be gentle with yourself and with this process, and to realize that you are entering uncharted, unknown territory. And I'm not going to lie, it is hard to navigate that, because there are so many emotions. You know, usually when we discover such a thing, there's blame, there's guilt, or there can be, it doesn't have to be, but there can be blame, there can be guilt, and all these conflicting emotions that need to slowly be unpacked. So that is where I work. You know, I like to work with my clients in the physical with stuff like that, or, you know, when we privately work online, that is where we very gently start unpacking the history, and we start going deeply into where is the emotion sitting in the body, and into, you know, guided meditations, into tremoring, so into trauma release therapy or movement. So, I mean, my advice would be to maybe seek out somebody and work with a trauma release counselor, feel into what is it that you would need. And at the same time, if you can, definitely go and speak to your husband, share with your husband, because there again, there can be so much shame, but we don't realize that whatever we are going through, when we have a life partner, there's always a learning for him as well, for him or her as well. So whatever we go through, there's always a mirroring on some level in our partner. And so to also, instead of feeling like, oh, now I have to bring this to him, is, well, I trust that there is something for him in it as well. So allow yourself, and that is part of the healing. Part of the healing really oftentimes I find is to just be heard, to just be witnessed. Most of the work that I do is really offer my full presence, my full honoring to the person that I work with, and to fully honor whatever arises, because anything that arises is always material, is always the gold that is going to get us to a point of liberation and empowerment. And so if you can find such a person, or, first start talking about it with your husband, and realize that you will need support, but also ask yourself, ask your body, what does it need? And, obviously it's trauma that's stored in the body, so it needs to physically be released. And then there needs to be, the process of understanding, what does that mean? What does that trauma mean to you? But at the same time, that you are never a victim of it. Because no matter what happens to us, it always happens for us. And there is always a gift when we reclaim the power that we lost there. And, we all lost power as children on some level for some reason. And it doesn't always have to be something as, hectic or dramatic as abuse, because we all have different shades of drama, so what's dramatic for me may not be dramatic for somebody else, but that's irrelevant. And I think that's where also a lot of times we can feel disempowered, because we may feel like, oh, well, I didn't have it so bad, so what right do I have to feel pain, or what right do I have to be so conflicted in my life? Hi, Colleen. And yeah, and that's never the case. We all have, our pain is our pain. And no matter how big or small, that is our crucible. And to use it as our point, our well of empowerment. And that the journey is simply about, or the healing is about the journey. The healing in many ways, like, it's never done. Of course we get to a point, like, I do want to say I am now, after many years of digging in my stuff and, working through things and peeling the layers back, I do feel I am very much now at a point where I am completely at peace with everything that I am, with my light, with my shadow. I have no more self-loathing. And that's beautiful, and it feels liberating. And I know that I am worthy of everything that I desire. But that doesn't mean that I'm done, And I still have moments where I go, even in this fast, I have moments where I go, and they're so intense, where I think, oh shit, okay, no, now I don't know where to from here. Now I really don't know. I had a moment like that yesterday morning, where I just wanted to, say, fuck it, and call mommy. And then I observed that, and for a moment I had to go there. It's like, it's acute, it's intense. And then I was able to take a step back and to go, okay, observe this moment now. And to remember that, of course, you always know what to do. But I was always also observing the part of me that wanted to throw her toys out, the one that wanted to, throw it all at my husband's head and kind of like say, it's your fault that I'm feeling like this, that, this is happening. And then I paused and I realized you're never without power. You are always in full power. You always have access to your full power, no matter what the circumstances are, no matter how tight you may seem to be. Sometimes we feel like we're just stuck between, what is it, a rock and a hard place or whatever. And that's never the case. In fact, when you are in that spot is because there is so much power compounded that, yes, it makes you feel like you're stuck. But the minute that you realize that you're not stuck, it goes and you realize, oh wow, there's all this potentiality. And that's the constant paradox, And other times we feel like we are so free, and the freedom can be constricting. So all is always possible at every moment. But yeah, I hope that I have answered your question, what to do in regards to this trauma that has opened up. And so I really encourage you to see it as a beautiful opportunity, and also as the universe saying to you, you're ready. You're ready, you're big enough to deal with this now, and you are ready to harness the power that you have lost there. And so as painful as it is, and as painful as it will seem in certain moments, and as much as certain moments you will think, this is too much for me to handle, I don't know what to do, why me, and that whole story will run. But remember in the back of your mind that this is a great opportunity. Just like any dis-ease, any trauma is always an invitation. It's always only an invitation to grow and to actually receive everything that you've been wanting life to give you. When we see it that way, And sometimes we need to wallow. Sometimes we can't always go, oh yes, this is my point of empowerment, And that's okay too. Sometimes we need to fully go into our rebellion, into our victimhood, so that then we can find again empowerment, And that's why sometimes I say you have to hit rock bottom. And I like to, kind of say, as much as nobody likes to hear that, I like to say that I like to push people into the precipice. Because, oftentimes you're like there, you're teetering back and forth, for years. And I tend to be the one that then triggers people to fall into the precipice. That is my job in many ways. That is my calling. Hi, Anke. And why do I push people into the precipice? And then often, obviously, people go like, oh, you triggered me, or, you caused me to be ripped open or collapse, or, whatever they want to project onto me. And it's like, yes, but unless, if you stay teetering, nothing happens. So go there, go into the precipice, go and hit rock bottom, go touch your deepest pain, your deepest sorrow, your deepest desperation, your deepest disempowerment. Go and touch that point where you think, I will never come back from this, and feel it. And out of there, because I've been there many times, which going there has allowed me to know exactly how to navigate that space. I've been at places where I couldn't possibly fathom how I would ever come back to life as it is now. Like, it was unfathomable. It was fathomable that I could be okay-ish, but not like this. And eventually, my greatest lesson was, okay, stay in the unfathomable. Stay in the point of no return, and see if life, not you, not your doing, but if life, the pure life force that is in all of us, that runs through all of us, the eros of life, the pure eros of life that runs through us, whether we want to or not, see if that is going to come and get you. Like that was my, when I hit that point, it was like, okay, I'm beyond any desire of life. And so all I can do is lean back into this point of nothingness and wait and see if life itself is true. And if this concept that love is all there is, if that is true. And just by leaning back into that and having really no desire to live, but it was without drama. It was sort of like a complete surrender to death. And to my utter surprise, by simply staying there and keeping myself almost pushed into that place, life came and called me. And it was the most beautiful arising to feel this pulse of life that literally beckoned me back to itself day by day. And it was, I didn't have any defense against it. I was so surrendered to death that allowed me to then go, okay, I'm coming back to life. And that was the most beautiful process of learning what is the eros of life and what does it mean to fully trust life. It means that life is greater than us. Life, the impulse of living, the impulse of creation that runs through us, is far bigger than than death. It's bigger than death. And that allowed me to trust into the deep benevolence that life is, that this universe is. It's a benevolent universe in spite of everything. We do live in a benevolent universe that will always call us back to love, to life, to creation, because that is what we're here for. And so when you can trust that, that is where you find your power. That is where life comes and meets you in the way that you need to be met. So that's my meditation for the day. And I don't see any questions, so I'm just going to leave you with this. And with all my love and respect for the huge task that you have taken on. And I thank you for doing the work that is necessary to come into your full power, because as you do this work, you allow others to do the same. You will inspire many others. And it doesn't have to be, becoming a world leader. If we can inspire one person and another, and that feeds us. And that's how we make bubbles of love. So thank you for your love and thank you for your heart. Bye.